Moses' Bush Revisited. Palestinian and Israeli negotiators were sitting next to John Kerry, America's current Secretary of State, in some Middle Eastern country that hasn't been affected by an Arab Spring. But neither side was prepared to negotiate on settlements, individual states, or occupation. Kerry's only comment was that the negotiations were respectful and would lead to more talks. Both negotiators from Jesus' homeland had scowls on their faces, because Kerry was nothing more than the next to the next politician that would arrive from America to forge an agreement. Unfortunately, before any of them could get up to leave, a bright red spot appeared on an empty chair beside each of the Middle East negotiators. Security sprang into action, weapons drawn, and they even stood in front of the chair as if to take the shot. But there was no interruption of the brightness of the light. It had nowhere to come from, and the brightness only sharpened. The negotiators were fixed into their seats because they wondered what would happen if they moved. Kerry stood up to confront the menace, but when he tried to sit back down, a third brightness appeared on his chair. The connotation was obvious, that he was not welcome at this regional peace conference, and what was even worse is that the bright red spot started to smoke when the negotiators started to stand up again, as if they were prepared to ignore the warning. The two men looked at their security contingent, but found that each man had a bright spot on their chest. And the security men knew this too, as they looked at each other's chest, and they slowly eased away to the exit and away from the forum. Cowards they weren't, but you can't fight what you can't see. And their absence is quickly replaced by screams coming from outside the room. The spots on the chairs for some reason disappeared, and the two men take the opportunity to stand up alongside Kerry as he looks out the window at the street below. And they were as astonished as he was, because every person, military or civilian, had a red spot on their chest. And this included babies in strollers, and if they were in a carriage, the spot was detailed on the carriage side, focused on the child inside. Some of the affected were screaming that it was there, while others tried desperately to scrape it from their clothes. A good portion of everyone, regardless of religion, are on their knees, praying and worshiping to live another day. The men look at each other as one of them touches the chair that was located beside him and was the target of the first red spot. Politics was no longer a concern, but the reality of death made their soul search for a solution. And both men suddenly understood that these red spots that smoked was nothing less than Moses' burning bush, and that Moses himself had no choice as to how to act. Was it a threat? No. God doesn't need to make threats, but the continued life of those that ignore him is in jeopardy. Would Moses have returned from the mountain if he had ignored the burning bush? And a comment buried in his faith is simple. I gave you a lot of religions to believe in, but only one son.